Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another Sobriety Engine Saturday night speaker meeting. Tonight is December 26, 2020. Tonight, our speaker will be Helene, and I've seen her in a couple of our meetings. She reached out and volunteered to share her story with us, and I'm always encouraged when people reach out to want to share their story because I love these meetings a lot, and really proud of you, Helene, for reaching out. And as always, I like to ask for the two words from our speakers, and she said peaceful and blessed. So I found this quote. It says, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." And I mean, that's pretty much sums up living peaceful and being blessed. For me, it's really what sobriety is noticing the subtle things and being humble. So with that being said, Helene.
Okay, thank you, Travis. Thank you for letting me speak. I've only done this a few times, but I like to share my story because if it gives someone some hope, then it's good to, to spread the message that where there is hope and recovery. I'll just start, I guess. My name's Helene, and I am 45 years old. I was born in December of 1975. My drug of choice, and someone said one time in this group, your choice of death, and that kind of rung out to me because it was a choice of between life and death for me when I made the decision to start recovery. But my drug of choice turned out to be opiates. I started out as my childhood was very normal. I'd never had any type of childhood abuse or trauma. I was born the oldest of three children. I have two younger brothers. I have a brother who is 40 and a brother who is 36. As a child, I was always the only girl, and I was the fixer and the mother figure. My mom suffered from depression as when I was a baby, and I stayed with my grandmother a good bit, but my mom always had us, and it was me and my two brothers and my dad, and we all had the same mother and father. So it was just a regular home. I didn't know of even alcohol until I remember one time my mom and dad, my uncle came over and he had a can of beer and he brought it and it sat in our refrigerator for years. Like my parents didn't drink at all. So it was, just a good childhood. My parents did get divorced when I was 14. And from that point, I started not having a lot of supervision. I started experimenting with like cigarettes, just smoking cigarettes. And that was like the only thing I really did up until about age 17 or 18. I think my friend and I snuck in my great grandmother's closet and drank some old liquor at one point. But we were just normal, I guess, kids, just curious. And then as a young adult, I started to become, interested in boys, and I got pregnant when I was 17. My parents they weren't around a whole lot, and I started a job when I was 16. I moved out on my own. I believe I was 16 or 17. And I was pregnant at age 17. I finished high school a year early, and because I graduated in the summer of 1993. My daughter was born in March of 94. But 2 months before she was born, I was playing with a friend's BB gun, and this was a really stupid thing to do, but she shot me in the eye. And I went, it was a horribly traumatic event. It was my right eye. I don't see out of my right eye, even since that accident. I went and I went to the hospital, of course, and I was pregnant. So they couldn't do, they had to wait and do surgery after my daughter was born. I had my retina detached. And, the doctors back then, this was in the mid 90s, early 90s, opiates were just pretty freely given. I was prescribed what they called Tylox back then. And the first time I took it, I knew, I really liked the way it made me feel. But I was in a lot of pain. My eye was, shot. And so I took that medicine but it started something. I think it started that feeling of I like this and I'd like to have more of this, but I never did get addicted at that point. It was just a feeling of, wow, this is great. I fell in love with the feeling, but I went on and went to nursing school, had my daughter, I was a single mother, graduated when she was 3 from nursing school, became a registered nurse, and went on to work at a hospital, local hospital. Nothing, no drugs, no drinking. I mean, I drank socially a little bit, but it was never a problem. Like I could stop anytime I wanted to. So that life continued for about 7 years in the hospital. I met who is now my ex-husband. At the time, we started dating, and I was like 25 years old. And by the way, I had married my daughter's father when I was 19, and then we divorced about a year later. So this would be my second marriage. I married my second husband in 2001, and I was a nurse at the hospital. We met there. Worked as a nurse, never deviated any drugs, never worked as, impaired nurse. I was, I would say, on top of things, and I didn't but, there was in the back of my mind, there was like, well, let's see, about 2005, a friend of mine was murdered, and I just got depressed. And, I have a family history of depression, and I started taking Prozac for the depression, and it was fine. I was able to cope with the loss of my friend who was shot by her husband. But as the years grew on, my daughter, who, I was a single mother and a teen mother. Well, when she was 16, she got pregnant and she had a child. So I was a grandmother at age 34. And I also had another child in 2003 with my second husband. So life was just busy, and it was, chaotic. And my husband was not really good with money. He wanted to spend a lot of money. And, through the years, I just started to reach out for things that I shouldn't have, like pain pills. It was just what made me feel better. And I would make up reasons to go to the doctor to get prescribed narcotics. I'd make up things that hurt. I would make up everything just to get prescribed opiates, because it was just an escape from reality, and it was a hole to fill us. It was to put, I guess they say, to fill your hole in your soul. So I had grown up as a child in church, went to church and knew God, but along the way, I lost touch with him. And so drugs just became an outlet to numb pain. And that's what I did for through the years from like 2005 to, well, maybe 2000, I'd say 16 or 17. I just off and on would reach out for opiates. It was never a physical addiction until about 2017, probably 18. So it became physical around that time as my progression of my addiction got worse. I started buying pills off the street. Um, you know, it just got progressively worse. Addiction, it just turns into your life becomes unmanageable, and it was becoming that way. Um, see, became also I left the hospital in 2004, and I became a school nurse. Uh, in the summer of 2018, I was so unhappy in my marriage that I left and found someone else who was actually a drug addict and an alcoholic. We had known each other years before. I reached out to him and just, one of those, I want something different. I want to feel different, and didn't reach out to God. So that was in the summer of 2018. From there on, it just became worse and worse. And pills were just any kind of pill to make me feel different or to make me feel nothing was what I searched for. I was still able to work. I went to work every day. There were times I would, go in late or call in sick, or, that became a problem too. And my boss would start to question, you're late, you need to be here on time. And that had never been an issue before. I'd always been on time for everything. So we go to like, let's see, we're in like December of 2018. My boyfriend at the time and we both realized that we had a problem with our alcohol and drug abuse. And we started going to AA. He had been in the program before, years off and on, relapse, with alcohol, vodka, cocaine, just name it, he did it. And so we started going to AA together. We tried to quit, and we did pretty good from December 2018 to April of 2019. We went to meetings twice a week, but we did it just the way we wanted to do it. We didn't work the program. We just did it on our own together. I didn't get a sponsor. He didn't have a sponsor. We were just kind of like each other's sponsor. And, that didn't work. That worked for a little while, but it worked until it didn't. And then when it didn't, it fell apart. So my boyfriend had been in an accident, a really bad car accident, about 6 months before this, maybe even 9 months. I'm trying to remember exactly when, but he got prescribed, opiates, and I took his, like I stole from him and took his pain medicine, and didn't tell him. And then he realized that I was taking it, and we locked it up, and we tried to find ways to, keep me from getting to it. And it was just, the addiction got worse and worse. And I just like started, when I didn't have it, I went into physical withdrawals from not having the opiates in my body. That was the first time I'd ever had physical withdrawals, and it was horrible. Never want to go back there, ever, 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 ever. Sick, just sick and feeling horrible. We lived together, and like I said, we went to meetings, and he, unknowingly to me, he started using heroin. He had been on heroin before. He had told me about his time and that he would never ever go back to that. He had been, homeless, living outside in a car, on heroin, and the stories he told me just made me never want to do it. I was just like, I would never do that. We went on a trip in May of 2019 to visit a friend of his. And so my boyfriend, who, was trying to stop drinking, he started drinking again. Vodka was his drink of choice. And on the night of May the 4th, he drank an ungodly amount of alcohol. He was taking things I didn't know he was taking, but pills, and I don't know what exactly he was doing, but he was just, out of control. So we drove back to our home on May the 5th, and he was horrible. I was driving, and he said on the trip back, he just told me, he said, I have a confession. I've been using heroin. And I knew that was one thing I never wanted to do. Just from the stories he told me, I was scared of it. But in a moment of insanity, I said to him, well, I think I want to try it. So we were in the car, and we live in South Carolina, but we were coming from Tennessee. So we stopped in North Carolina, and he bought some heroin. And we tried it in the car. And within 5 minutes, well, we snorted it. I'd say 5 minutes, but I don't really know the time because things just went out. I blacked out. And so I was driving the car, and I was going in and out of consciousness, and I was able to get the car pulled into a parking lot of a grocery store. And the next thing I know, I'm waking up on a stretcher. And they tell me that they're doing CPR on my friend. And I had been revived with Narcan. And what had happened was, I got the car into the parking lot, and I bumped into a car. Someone saw us, and they called 911, and the EMT came, or the police came, and they broke the window to get to us. The door was locked, and we were in the car unconscious, not breathing. Danny was worse than I was. He had been drinking, and he died. I'd say he died in the car that day. They said he died at the hospital. But that was May the 5th of 2019. And that was when I made the decision to stop, to get treatment. Someone came and visited me in the hospital from I don't know what you call it, peer support, and I think they had a lot to do with saving my life. They told me it was okay, there was no judgment, that, there was help out there. And so I reached out, and I got help that day. Well, it wasn't exactly that day, but the next week. I had to have a funeral for my boyfriend, but I was alive, and I knew I was there for a reason. I had a 14-year-old at the time, and to think that he was going to lose his mother just broke my heart, and I didn't ever want him to feel like that again, that he might not have a mother. And so I went into a program called the Recovering Professionals Program, which is for nurses and healthcare professionals. I went to a intensive outpatient treatment, started that in June of 2019. And I'll go back to something that happened. So after this happened, May the 5th of 2019, I hid it from my employer, and I went back to work 3 days later, and I didn't tell anybody what happened, but it was found out what happened. So I was given the ultimatum to either resign or to quit. So I chose to quit my job as a school nurse, and I quit for health reasons. But I was put into this program, so my license was affected, but I still have my nursing license. It was something I worked really hard for. When I was, a single mother, I worked hard to become a nurse, and I want to still continue that, but I had to give that up for a little while. I was out of work for a year, and I just made some notes here because okay, so then I also got a sponsor. the best thing that happened in my whole life. I started working the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and got a sponsor in June. You know, went through the outpatient treatment program, went through recovery management, graduated in October of 2019. Still not working, but doing what I needed to do to fix myself, because there were a lot of things I had neglected over the years from me. You know, I had helped everybody else. I had taken care of everybody else, and I didn't take care of myself. So this was a time that I was able to spend on myself. I did the steps. I went to meetings constantly. Uh, let's see what else. Right now, I am not working as a nurse. In June of 2020, I got a job as a medical assistant. A really good friend of mine who's a nurse helped me. She found a job. Well, she works where I worked. She needed someone to be an assistant. So I started like a apprenticeship and learned what I needed to learn to be a medical assistant in a hair transplant center. And that's where I'm working right now. And I'm so blessed. I was just going to say that, you know, I knew God before, but this moment of surrender in May of 2019, you know, it made me see that God was there for me. He reached down and he saved me. And my higher power became very important. I became just so grateful for everything. You know, I moved in with my mom in May of 2019. She helped me a lot. She had always been there for me. Like she helped me through nursing school, and then she helped me in recovery. And I still live with her. You know, I see my son all the time. My husband and I, my ex-husband and I are divorced. We got divorced in December of 2019. Wow, it's just been a crazy, crazy trip and ride, but I have become a different person. I'm not the person I was before. Um, I've worked the steps of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And then I started, you know, reaching out to other programs like Celebrate Recovery, online meetings like COVID hit in March of 2019, March of 2020, as we all know. And I started doing online meetings a lot. And I just found, you know, that this recovery community was so strong and it literally saved my life. Like, I don't know what I would do without my people. I go to meetings now, you know, in person, and I do online meetings, and it's just amazing what's out there. To talk to people and to give people hope is what I'm hoping that my life can be devoted to. I do hope to one day go back to work as a registered nurse, but if God has something else for me, then I'm ready to take that route. But this program I'm in, it's called Recovering Professional Program, and it's up to a 5-year program. So I check in once a day, Monday through Friday, to see if I'm going to be drug tested, and it's 1 to 2 usually drug tests a month, which I have to pay for. It's been really expensive, but God has provided, and you know, I'm so grateful for everything I've learned during this process, and having that year off from work was the biggest blessing of my life. I just want to give people hope that, you know, you can do it. It's possible, and relapse is possible, but recovery is possible. And I'm just grateful and very thankful that God saved me that day. And I'm just glad to be here. And I don't know how long I took, but anyway, thank you for letting me share my story.
Thank you for sharing your story and coming here and being vulnerable. It's you know, another person who's sharing their story, who again, in their own words, is telling a part of mine. And you know, your story speaks a lot of a lot of persistence. It's like you knew all along that something was kind of off, but you just kind of lacked the tools, and you kind of kept following that itch, like a lot of us, and a lot of us have that little switch that doesn't turn off, and it puts us in unmanageable lives, unmanageable situations. But I know your story definitely helped instill a lot of hope in me. You talked about knowing that the spirit was already there, or God was already there. And when you surrendered you were aware that you're in addiction, and when you surrendered it, your life got better. And that's pretty much the consensus of the program for a lot of people who have found success. Um, so thank you very much for sharing your story, Helene. That's for me.
You're welcome.
Does anybody have any words that they would like to share with Helene tonight? Greg?
My name is Craig. I'm an alcoholic from Chula Vista, California. Helene, what a hell of a story, girl. You know what? You had me, I was at the edge of my seat, you know what? And I listened so close to everything. And still, I love it. I love it. The program works if you work it. My wife and I are AA for years now. And you know what? Just you talking, I mean, brought it back. And you know what? I give you all the credit in the world. Takes a lot of courage to get up here and talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and then offer all that hope to everybody that might be hurting right now. Fuck, it was on target. And I really, from the bottom of my heart, I tell you, you know what? You're a testament to Alcoholics Anonymous, to this platform of Sobriety Engine. And thanks for sharing your story. I needed to hear it. I needed to hear it. Thank you.
Yes, I agree. It was Bonnie said, a fierce lady. Like the opiate thing. When you said I would have tried it, like I was so much like you all of my life. I would never do it, but if I was in the right position, in the right situation, like it can happen to any of us. It really can happen to any of us.
I was just gonna add
Anybody
one
else
thing.
like to share? Go ahead.
Okay. I was just gonna add one thing, Travis. Like it's like addiction has no face, like it does not discriminate. And I know y'all have heard that before, but it's so true. I was like your school nurse mom that nobody thought this would happen to, and it did. And it took me down really fast, but I was able to get out of it. And I just want to, I'm a I want to help people. That's all. I'm really the reason I came on, because I just feel like I can help somebody in the future. And um, my story may not be exactly like yours, but we can find a lot of similarities in all of our stories. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons I love these speaker meetings, because it doesn't matter who's speaking, they're telling our story to an extent. It literally can be any of us. Okay, let's go with Dennis, and then we'll do Stephanie.
Yeah, good share. I heard you say a magical word, and that was surrender. You know, I always accepted that surrendering was a losing thing, and that's an important part of this program. That if you to stick with the winners, and if you surrender, you're with the winners. And just listening to you, you gave me hope. Um, and that there's a big difference between hopelessness and having hope, I like to say this, you and I have something in common. We're both miracles with everybody else that's in this program. Some people make it and some don't, and some aren't done. And you know I can't save anybody, but I when I share, I try to give them my side and experience, strength, and hope. I can't be a counselor, and sometimes, well, I got a character defect of being a fixer, and in the past, I thought I could fix you, but being a nurse, I'm sure you probably could fix somebody, especially if they're suffering from heart attack or I tell you what, it's always nice to have a nurse around. Anyway, thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Dennis. Stephanie.
Sorry, Travis. Yeah, thanks for coming here and definitely sharing your story. That was awesome. It definitely sounds like, you've always wanted to help people even in and outside of addiction. So that's awesome too. It's like, you did a full circle even though you didn't mean to, kind of type thing. So it's kind of crazy how that worked out. Also from South Carolina. So definitely hit me up to chat, Pill Addict too. So I can definitely relate. You definitely spoke my story, and you show a lot of resilience and vulnerability. And you definitely, gave me a lot of hope too, that, my story's not, it's gonna end eventually. And that's what you taught me. So thanks.
Thank you for sharing, Stephanie. John, would you like to share?
Couldn't find my button here. I'm John. I'm an alcoholic. First thing I want to say, Helene, is great job, great story, great courage telling your story. And we all need to hear these stories from time to time, and we all have our own story, but it seems like they're all different, but they're all the same thing. We start out there's no discrimination. We start out so innocent, and it starts out so slow, and then it turns into this downward spiral we all end up in. And we reach that point where this disease destroys us, and we hit that moment where we need to surrender, and if we don't survive. And everybody needs to hear these stories all the time. There's so many people out there that are through various phases of this, and these stories can help so many people. It's so important for them to hear. Like you said, it doesn't discriminate. We come from all walks of life. We're moms like you. We're nurses like you. I was a policeman. The teachers, firemen, you name it. We're all good people. We're all out there living day to day and doing the right thing. And this disease it destroys us. And everybody needs to hear these stories. And if one person hears this story and lives to talk about it, words can't describe how valuable that is. So just wanted to say that, and kudos to you again. Everybody stay with it. So that's what I got. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing that with us, John. And it's kind of touching on Dennis and everyone else being like the fixer. I think one of the greatest things that I found to help that is just offering service. And it took me a long time to realize that the first form of service that I was just coming to these meetings and listening then kind of speaking, you know, even though it might not make sense, someone might take something from it, right? So coming here and listening and offering small service was my first step. And then, you know, I was grateful enough to be able to step into a position of hosting. But in terms as far as community support and recovery goes, being in service and offering service is a huge part. You know, I would love to fix many of the world's problems, but you know, we just gotta, you know, focus on our own night sometimes. Leo, did you got some words that you'd like to share with tonight, buddy?
Hey everybody, my name's Leo. I'm an alcoholic. Helene, mad respect for you. I never met you before tonight, but you came in here and you absolutely laid down in front of everybody. You threw your pain out there and you threw your experience out there. And you know what? Accept the love that's in this room for you right now, man. You belong in this room with us because we're all trying to get the same thing going on. 100% respect the hell out of you. And you know what? You're going to make a good counselor because a bunch of nurses are going to be in trouble and a bunch of first responders are going to be in trouble after this. This is your road. Yes, it is. Don't shake your head. This is your road. I think you're going to be great at this, man. Mad respect for you. Thanks so much for your share.
Thank you, Leo the Lion. You are one of the fiercest coaches in this platform, and you know, I really respect your I respect you a lot, Leo, for what you bring to this program. As a side note, does anybody else want to share tonight, or ask any questions for Helene?
I'm Kathy. I'm an alcoholic and I'm in Naples, Florida.
Okay.
And Travis, thanks for hosting this meeting. And Helene, you've done a beautiful job, absolutely beautiful job of telling your story the way it should be told. I mean, I've heard a million stories. I've told my story a million times. But what Travis said made so much sense to me for all of us. We're doing service work just by being at a meeting. When you go to a meeting, we're all here for each other. And that's part of service. But I started out a long time ago and I became a GSR for right off the bat. Nobody else wanted to do it, I think, but I was glad to do it. And I've never stopped since. I'm a volunteer now at a well-known treatment center in Naples, part of the Minnesota group, Hazelden. And I can't tell you what it means to me. I know it does a lot of good there, but it's for me it helps my program and my whole world. It revolves around my sobriety. It's selfish, but I can't help anybody until I help myself first. And you're doing a great job because you take care of you, and you'll be able to take care of everybody. So thank you for welcoming me to this meeting for the first time. I've been on this site a lot, but I'm glad to be here tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming here, and glad that you're able to join us tonight and hear this awesome share. You know, and I agree again. You know, there's just this a great story, and you know, there's always the underlying similarities that we have, but then there's also the differences that people have. You know, like for example, Helene's a nurse, and you know how many nurses are out there who might be struggling with something, and you know, and just afraid to reach out, don't know how to reach out, don't know if there is help. You know, like for me, like I'm a younger male who's you know who has had my own story. It's obviously everyone in this room shares something else, but how many other young men are out there who are just afraid or don't know how to ask for help, or you know, like John said, he was a police officer. How many police officers are out there and are afraid and don't know how to ask for help? Like this is I appreciate these meetings because they bring home those things to me. Like, yes, we're all addicts, and yes, we all have similarities, but the differences are also so significant that our lives can reach out further than, than just these rooms and people who might not just know I might have an addiction now, like hearing your story. And so I appreciate you and everyone who comes into here to share their story. It's a brave and admirable thing to do. Would anybody else like to share?
I can share.
Jessica?
Hi, I'm Jessica. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for sharing. When I guess when I hear a story like yours, like we're all saying, like Travis saying that our story comes out, yeah, and like it makes me feel like I'm not alone, and that I am worthwhile mother, and just because of some past shortcomings that obviously didn't go the way that we would have put in the storybook of my childhood and then that chapter, but what are you going to do, so yeah, I actually I totally forgot about having had the opportunity to do, and now I'm forgetting, I did go to like kind of like a well-known psychiatrist in Sarasota, not too far from Naples, my favorite area of the world. But yeah, and I went through like a therapy, like where it reverses like out like the negative so that you remember like the horrible things that happen, but like it doesn't trigger you to go back to that dark place. And I don't know, I'll have to look it up for another time, but it just kind of triggered that like I remember going back for like a follow-up with Dr. Quintel is his name. And I was like, we were talking about some of the horrific things that had happened during that time on opiates. And I'm like, yeah, can you believe it? I was like, and I'm like laughing about it. Like, and he's like, whoa, like you're like laughing about, and he goes, oh my God. He's like, you're like coming full circle. Like, yeah, is it funny? No, but like where you have to be like, oh my God, such a, and be able, and that's kind of how I am as a person. So it fits my personality to be able to flip it into like, where you can look at it and be able to move on. Was it from that therapy that I did with him? Maybe. I do feel like that was a huge life changer after I had done my 60 days. I started going to him, and he's not cheap at all. So I'm forever indebted to my parents for like going out on a limb, because it sounds a little voodoo for some people maybe, but yeah, so I just to be that, that parent and the judgmental. But if I had known that there were mothers like me that, had like the corporate job in my case, and was on, the school committee and stuff, but I was struggling, that if I had somebody to be able to look at them and see them like, okay, they struggled and they're in recovery, and like, look at her go, so I think it's nice, because I have had people come up to me, and like my daughter went to a small little elementary school until last year, and some of the mothers knew that I wasn't very close with, not necessarily for reasons I want to know, but I had a couple people come up to me and go, like, I know I probably shouldn't know what happened. And they're like, but I'm so proud of you. Like, my sister went through it. And I was like, oh my God, really? Like, I was afraid to walk in the doors of that school that first day, because I knew the principal knew stuff, the teachers, and I just had to be like, okay, put on the big girl panties and like walk in that damn door, Jess, and I did. And like, everybody was like so accepting. And I was like, I was very lucky, because it could have gone a different way. But I think part of it was how I presented myself, like, Jess 2.0, so I see that in you, that 2.0, the, what do they call it? Like the comeback's better than the setback or whatever. So thank you for just reminding me that I'm not alone, especially with some of those specialty caveats of like being a single mom and things like that. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica, for sharing. And you said Jessica 2.0, and it reminded me, I want to say that Leo says it all the time, how special are we that we get to live two lives, we get to live that life, and then we get to live this life. And it's one of the things that Helene said was that, you know, like the addiction progressively got worse. You know, like I was so unaware of my lifestyle getting progressively worse because I was living in normal, like what normal seemed like or what normal was, without knowing that, you know, my actions and behaviors were getting just slightly more subtly more worse each and every single time that I used. And then eventually I was like, wow, my life is unmanageable. How did I get here? And that was the end of life 1.0. And then I found life 2.0 and it was much better. You know, it just, you know, like Helene says, I've been able to count my blessings and I'm peaceful, you know, I'm blessed and peaceful in my sobriety. And it's a beautiful thing. It really is. Yeah. Does anybody else have anything else they'd like to share tonight? All right, everyone. It was, again, I would like to thank Helene for volunteering to share her story tonight. It was a beautiful story, a very vulnerable share. A lot of bravery and courage was required. I'm sure that you will succeed in reaching out, saving lives. You know, it's one of the beautiful things of having these meetings recorded is that they will be there for us and others as long as this platform exists. And that's a beautiful thing. I really appreciate your story. I really appreciate everyone's story. Thank you everyone for coming out to support Helene, you know, and to be here for yourself, to help me. For all those who are out there who are still sick and suffering, take a moment of silence and hope they find their way soon. And then we can close out with the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the
Grant me the
serenity
serenity to accept the
Accept the
things I
things I
cannot
cannot
accept
change,
change.
and
Courage to
courage
change things
things
I
I can,
things I
and the
and
wisdom
the
to
wisdom to
wisdom
know
to
the
know the
difference.
difference.
keep
Amen.
coming
Keep
back.
coming back. It
Coming
works if you
back.
work
When
it.
you work it.
Thank you, Helene.
Thank
Hey,
you, Helene. Thank
everybody,
you.
have a good night. Travis, thank
Everybody
you
have
for
a
your
good
Bye.
service,
night.
my brother.
Thank you, Travis.
Thanks,
Thank
Travis.
Thank you, Helene.
absolutely, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Good
Thank you,
night.
Travis. Thank you, Aline. Come back. Good job. Thanks, brother. Have a good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night.